The music industry is no stranger to conspiracy theories. There are plenty out there. On the top of my head, I could think of Paul McCartney dying in 1966, Andrew WK being an imposter, Avril Lavigne is dead and is also an imposter, Nicki Minaj is actually Jay-Z, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. But hardly any music conspiracy has come close to being as strange and comedic as the one we're going to talk about today, maybe other than the Nicki Minaj and Jay-Z one. And that theory we're talking about today is that an indie rock or folk rock musician built a time machine and went back in time and saved Anne Frank from the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. But I'm getting kind of ahead of myself. Join me as we talk about that time a musician went back in time and saved Anne Frank. Real quick, I want to tell you guys that I'm planning on making That Time When a series of videos. I'm not entirely sure how frequent they will be. However, I'm completely open to suggestions on what else to cover on That Time When, so drop a comment if you'd like, but I do plan on sticking to darker content other than the occasional video like this one. And sorry about my voice, I'm sick, and thank you for watching, and enjoy the video. Formed in 1989, Neutral Milk Hotel was an indie band that came from Louisiana. The members were Jeff Mangum, Julian Coster, Scott Spillane, Jeremy Barnes, and Robert Schneider. Not that one. Honestly, Mangum is the only person involved in this crackpot story because he's the lead singer of the band. Although the band was formed in the late 1980s, it was really just Mangum's home recording projects. In fact, their first album was released in 1996 with the help of Robert Schneider as the producer. It sold 5,000 copies, and it received a positive reaction from critics, so of course, they went on to their second album, which is where the story actually begins. Their second album, titled In the Aeroplane Over the Sea, released in 1998. It sold similarly to the first album, however their critical response was less impressed this time around, although it was positive for the most part. For mostly unknown reasons, some say it was possible burnout, Mangum never continued making music with the band and essentially avoided the public eye. There were occasions when Mangum popped up, but he wanted to be left alone. Mangum told a journalist that wouldn't leave him alone. "I'm not an idea, I am a person who obviously wants to be left alone. If my music has meant anything to you, then you'll respect that. Since it's my life and my story, I think I should have little say as to when it's told. I haven't been given that right." Which, by the way, side note here, I read a bunch of articles disagreeing with him. One even said, in quotes, "He's not entirely correct. Mangum is a public figure making commercial art. We are supposed to relate, and we are entitled to our curiosity." Which I think is completely stupid, if I'm gonna be honest. I'm not sure if it's unrealistic or not, but I think if somebody wants to be left alone, they should be given that right, or at least, I don't know, try something, instead of hounding on him for years and years of his life to the point where he actively hates you.
Hey, are you recording me?
I think it's quite insane how people sort of lashed back at him. Of course, anybody could do what they want though, but trying to tell somebody they're incorrect about being left alone is just plain ridiculous. Although the band was essentially broken up, the fanbase continued to grow. Not only was the mystery of the breakup and Mangum's disappearance intriguing to many, they also managed to perfectly line their band's growth with the growth of the internet on accident. Of course, there are other factors such as their influence on other bands that eventually blew up, but it's difficult to pinpoint any kind of specific reason. But in my opinion, I feel like the internet thing really skyrocketed them because that's how information spread so fast. It's undeniable though that around 2009 to 2010, Neutral Milk Hotel kind of became a meme.
Oh, Conway, I will be with you when you lose your brave, chasing me.
For the most part though, In the Aeroplane Over the Sea became a meme rather than Neutral Milk Hotel themselves. And a large contributor to that is what the album is about at face value, and also the tambourine, potato wedge, drum, well, whatever you think it is. who cares, but it's super exploitable and you're able to put whatever you want on it, and it's kind of fun to do so. It doesn't take a super genius to realize that the album is about the Holocaust, and it was also inspired by the Diary of Anne Frank. So you're probably thinking, oh, it's just an album about the Holocaust and Anne Frank, but it gets better. It is theorized that Jeff Mangum built a time machine, went back in time, and saved Anne Frank. It sounds completely crazy, and believe me, it is. Despite these insane claims, it is pretty funny looking at people read the lyrics at face value. I guess in the sense the lyrics are sort of saying it, but that doesn't mean the guy actually went back in time and saved Anne Frank. I know they buried her body with others, her sister and mother and 500 families, and will she remember me 50 years later? I wished I could save her in some sort of time machine. It's just a single example as to lyrics that people connected with him going back in time in a time machine to save her. Of course, the main source of these insane conspiracy theories is 4chan, a controversial anonymous posting forum, but we're not here to talk about the ethics or morality of 4chan. That's completely irrelevant. I don't care about 4chan, honestly. This thread was posted on October 20th, 2012, and it was an image showing Jeff Mangum in his high school yearbook. It wasn't anything too insane until it was discovered that there was somebody by the name of Coraline Mangum, presumably Jeff's sister. Pretty quickly, the thread absolutely lost their mind, especially once someone compared Coraline and Anne Frank. I'll be honest, they do look very similar. And not only that, but his wife, Astra Taylor, was also compared to Anne Frank and his sister. Just look at the similarities. They're obviously there. You got the hair, I guess. I guess she stuck with the same haircut throughout her whole time-traveling life. She does that head turn thing. Yeah, boom. I think the eyes, I don't know, it's black and white. So he somehow built a time machine. A musician built a time machine. This isn't a scientist. He went back in time and saved Anne Frank specifically, gave her to his younger self or something, and they pretended they were brother and sister for half of their life. And then they grew up together. She changes her name to Astra Taylor, and they live happily ever after. Honestly, even though I'm not at all convinced that any of this actually happened, I still find this to be a very fun thing to talk about because there are some weird coincidences, and it's just, I think it would be cool if it happened. I'm a sucker for crazy, impossible conspiracies, and I just find them ridiculously fun. In all honesty, he probably just saw his sister and Anne Frank or something because of how similar they look, and it just stuck with him maybe. It's kind of uncomfortable to talk about how his wife kind of looks like his sister and Anne Frank because that was probably a very unfortunate position that he was in when people found out, and everybody was calling him incestuous and stuff like that. And people were even saying in the airplane over the sea was him confessing his love for his sister and stuff like that. There's a lot of weird stuff. I don't know. As fun as the whole theory is, I do find it extremely hard to believe. Obviously, not only is there a time machine, that's always a red flag. Just look at John Teeter or whatever his name was, and stuff like that. Or that person who traveled back in time and watched JFK get assassinated. Those are always a little harder to believe for obvious reasons. I just think it's super fun to talk about. And I'll probably talk about more wacky, stupid, crazy theories in the future. And there you have it. There's not a conclusion to this or anything. Not until Jeff builds a time machine, of course. I'm sure I disappointed a few of you. I apologize if I did. But I hope most people came into this video didn't genuinely believe that this dude built a time machine specifically to save Anne Frank. Why wouldn't he save a lot more people? Why wouldn't he kill Hitler or something? Like that's always the thing that pops up in my mind is why do this specific thing and not something else? But if he did, I would gladly eat my words. But this was fun to research, and it's even more fun to spread the word because it's a pretty strange story. That and going back in the archives and looking at some of the stuff that people posted on 4chan was also pretty funny. There's a lot of funny stuff there. And lastly, I'd like to thank you for watching. I hope to be able to make this a series that I do every once in a while. If you have anything you want me to cover, just leave a comment below or something. Next video is going back to something darker. That's why I wanted to make this one. It's kind of like an appetizer of sorts. It's gonna be about a Reddit incel who was punished for grooming a minor online and ended up killing 5 people because of it. But that's sort of the basic baseline explanation of it. If you know the story, you'd know what I'm talking about maybe. If you don't, be prepared for that video. It's a wild one. Once again, thank you for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one.